The day Tego was chased out of the family compound, barefoot and shivering outside the house, she turned back once, just once, to see if anyone would stop them. No one did. They laughed as she slipped in the mud. But what none of them knew was that the man waiting inside the black SUV down the street wasn't just any stranger. He was her husband. Tego was just a young girl when she lost her parents. With no one else to care for her, she was sent to live with her uncle and aunt. But instead of finding love and comfort, Tego found a life full of pain. They didn't treat her like family. She was more like a housemaid, cooking, cleaning, and doing chores from morning till night. While their own children went to school in neat uniforms, Tego wore old, torn clothes passed down through many hands. If she ever spoke too loudly or made a small mistake, they shouted at her, sometimes even hit her. But Tego was different. Inside her, there was a quiet fire. Even though the world treated her badly, she never stopped dreaming. She loved reading old books that she found at the back of the house. Every night, when everyone else was asleep, she sat under the weak light in the kitchen and read stories about strong women, powerful queens, and brave girls who changed their lives. In those moments, she felt hope. She believed that one day, her life would be better. But during the day, her dreams felt far away, buried under insults and heavy chores. People in the village saw her and pitied her, but no one helped. They all believed she would never become anyone important. After all, what could a poor, unwanted girl like Tego ever do? But what no one knew was that behind those tired eyes and quiet nature was a girl full of strength, kindness, and wisdom. She was waiting for one moment, one chance, to prove that being poor didn't mean she was worthless. That chance was coming, and it would change everything. One hot afternoon, the village was full of noise and excitement. A group of doctors and nurses had come from the city to hold a free medical camp. People rushed in from nearby villages. Old women, coughing children, tired farmers, all hoping to get help. Tego, as usual, was sent by her aunt to carry water and sweep the place, not to see any doctor. But as she worked, she noticed one man who was different. He wasn't loud like the others. He moved quietly, spoke gently, and helped even when no one was watching. His name was Inya. Inya smiled when Tego offered him water. Most people ignored her, but he looked her in the eye and said, "Thank you." From that small kindness, something began. Whenever she had a break, Tego would sit nearby and watch how Inya cared for people, how he listened, how he treated each patient with respect. One day, he asked her why she wasn't in school. She shrugged and said, "I'm just the help." Inya didn't laugh or pity her. He simply said, "Even flowers bloom in hard soil." That sentence stayed in her heart. They started talking more. Tego would sneak away for a few minutes just to share a story or hear one of his. She told him about her love for books, how she dreamed of becoming someone important one day. He never judged. In fact, he encouraged her. But what she didn't know, what no one knew, was that Inya was not just any doctor. He was the owner of a massive health tech company, one that was changing hospitals and clinics across Africa. He had come in secret, dressed as a simple volunteer, because he wanted to see the real problems people were facing. He wanted to help from the ground up, not just from a glass office. To Tego, Inya was just a kind stranger who believed in her when no one else did. But slowly, something deeper was growing between them, something soft, warm, and full of promise. She had no idea how big his world really was, and how soon her life was about to step right into it. As the medical camp days passed, Tego and Inya began to grow closer. What started as small chats during breaks became longer, conversations filled with laughter, dreams, and quiet understanding. Inya would ask her about her favorite books, and she would tell him stories from her childhood. Tego felt safe around him, something she had never felt before. Inya never judged her or made her feel small. He treated her like an equal, like someone who mattered. And slowly, something soft and special started growing between them, something more than friendship. They began meeting in secret, sometimes near the river, sometimes under the old mango tree behind the village school. They didn't need to say much. A smile, a glance, a few words were enough. Tego had never known love, not even from family. But with Inya, she felt seen, heard, and truly loved for who she was, not what she had. Inya, too, had never met anyone like Tego. She was different, strong, kind, wise beyond her years, even though life had been so unfair to her. He saw something in her that money could never buy: purity, loyalty, and heart. But he also knew her family would never allow them to be together. They saw Tego as a servant, not as someone worthy of love. If they found out, they would tear her apart. So one quiet afternoon, Inya asked her to meet him in town. When she arrived, he gently took her hand and said, "Let's not wait for anyone's approval. I want you as my wife." Tego's eyes filled with tears, of joy, of shock, of finally being chosen. They got married that same day at a small court, with just two kind witnesses, a flower vendor and a taxi driver who had driven them there. After signing the papers, Inya looked into her eyes and said, "You won't have to hide forever. When the time is right, the whole world will know who you are." Tego smiled, holding his hand tight, her heart beating fast with both fear and happiness. She was now a wife, married to a man who the world would one day recognize. But for now, their love was a secret treasure hidden away from the noise of the world. It was quiet, it was real, and it was theirs. One evening, Tego came back home after helping at the health center. She looked tired but happy. Around her neck was a small, beautiful necklace, silver, with a tiny heart charm. Inya had given it to her that afternoon after their secret meeting. "Just something simple to remind you how much I love you," he had said, gently placing it around her neck. Tego had never received a gift before, not for her birthday, not even during Christmas. Holding it made her feel special, like someone finally saw her worth. But the moment she stepped into the house, her aunt's sharp eyes caught the shine. "Where did you get that necklace?" she snapped. Her uncle looked up from his chair with suspicion. Tego froze. She didn't want to lie, but she also couldn't tell them it was from her husband. No one in that house knew she was married. No one would believe her. They would only accuse her of something worse. "I found it," Tego whispered, trying to avoid more trouble. That was the moment her aunt exploded. "You found something that expensive? Do you think we're fools?" Without warning, her aunt grabbed the necklace and yanked it hard from Tego's neck. The tiny chain snapped, and the charm flew across the room. "Thief!" her aunt shouted, loud enough for the neighbors to hear. "You sneak around like a rat, and now you're stealing jewelry? Who gave it to you? Some useless man in the bush?" Tego's face turned red with shame, but she stayed silent. Her silence made them even angrier. Her uncle stood up. "You're a disgrace to this family, wearing stolen things and lying. Get out. We've had enough of you." Tego tried to speak, to explain, but her voice shook too much. Her cousin stood behind her aunt, laughing cruelly. "Look at her, big girl with no manners, trying to act like a rich woman." Her aunt pointed at the door. "Get out, before I throw you out myself." Tego stood still for a moment, her hands shaking, tears building up in her eyes. Then she turned and slowly walked to her small room. She packed the few clothes she had into a nylon bag, picked up her shoes, and stepped outside into the night. Her chest was tight, her heart broken, and her secret still locked inside. No one knew the truth. No one knew that necklace was from the man who had married her out of love. But soon they would. The next morning, the sun had barely risen when the shouting began. Tego was still in her tiny room, sitting on the floor, holding what was left of her necklace. She hadn't slept. Her eyes were swollen from crying all night. But before she could even gather her thoughts, her aunt burst in, followed by her cousins. "Get up! Out of this house, thief!" her aunt screamed, grabbing Tego's small bag and throwing it outside. Tego rushed to the doorway, trying to stop them. "Please, auntie, let me explain." But no one wanted to hear her. Her uncle stepped outside and began throwing her old clothes into the yard, one by one. Her cousins laughed and shouted, drawing the attention of neighbors. Some stood by the fence, others peeped from their windows. Everyone came to see the drama. "You see this girl?" her aunt shouted at the crowd. "She thinks she's better than us, walking around with stolen jewelry. We raised her, fed her, and this is how she pays us back." Tego stood frozen, barefoot, wearing a faded dress. She looked around, hoping someone would speak up for her, but no one did. She tried to plead again, her voice shaking. "I didn't steal it. Please don't do this." But her uncle grabbed her arm roughly and pushed her toward the gate. "Go, before we call the police," he yelled. Tego stumbled forward, her few belongings now scattered across the dirt. Her cousins kicked her plastic slippers toward her. "Take your nonsense and leave," one of them sneered. She picked up her things with trembling hands, tears falling freely now. She looked at the house one last time, hoping, just hoping, that someone would stop this. But instead, they slammed the gate shut behind her. The loud clang echoed in her ears. The neighbors watched silently. Some pitied her, but none helped. No one knew the truth she was hiding deep in her heart. Tigo was not just a poor girl thrown out in shame. She was someone's wife. She had been married quietly, with love and respect. And though she was walking away barefoot, shivering in the morning cold, she carried that one truth like a shield over her broken heart. Just as Tego was walking down the dusty road, barefoot and broken, a shiny black SUV with tinted windows slowly pulled up beside her. The engine purred quietly, but it still caught the attention of a few curious eyes nearby. The car looked too expensive, too clean, too powerful to be in that kind of neighborhood. People paused, heads turned, whispers started, the back door opened, and to everyone's surprise, Inya stepped out. He was wearing a neat suit, and he looked completely different from the simple field doctor they once saw at the medical camp. He walked straight to Tego without saying a word to anyone. His eyes were full of pain when he saw her standing there with dust on her feet, carrying her few belongings in a nylon bag. Without caring about the stares, he gently wrapped his long coat around her shoulders. Then he placed his hand on her cheek and whispered softly, "You're not going back there. Not ever again." Tego broke into tears again, not from sadness this time, but from relief. She wasn't alone. She wasn't abandoned. She leaned into him, and for the first time in a long time, she felt safe. By now, more neighbors had come out. Some dropped their water buckets. Others pretended to sweep their compound, just to keep watching. One woman gasped, "Wait, is that the same man from the clinic?" Another man replied, "No, oh, that man is rich. Look at that car. Who is he?" Someone else said, "Are you sure Tigo didn't marry a big man secretly?" The gossip spread quickly, flying from house to house. The same people who watched her being thrown out like a dog now watched in shock as she was helped into a luxury car by a man who looked like he could buy the whole village. As Inya helped Tego into the back seat and closed the door gently, her aunt peeked through the curtain, her mouth wide open. Her cousins rushed to the gate to get a better view, but it was too late. The SUV slowly drove off, leaving behind dust and silence. And just like that, the poor girl they all insulted was gone, protected, loved, and driven away by a man who clearly saw her worth. 1 week after Tego was thrown out like trash, her aunt and uncle received a special invitation. It came from a local politician who was organizing a high-level charity dinner in the city. The invitation said it was a gathering of dignitaries and community builders. They were shocked. Why would someone so important invite them? Still, they dressed in their best clothes and made their way to the fancy hotel where the dinner was held. The hall was decorated with golden lights, soft music, and people who looked rich and powerful. They sat at a corner table, feeling out of place but pretending to fit in. Then the announcer spoke into the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome tonight's special guest, Mr. Inya, founder and CEO of Heal Africa Tech Group." Everyone clapped, but her aunt and uncle froze. Their eyes nearly popped out when they saw Inya step onto the stage looking confident, powerful, and nothing like the humble field doctor they remembered. People whispered about him being one of the richest young men in the country. Cameras flashed. The media recorded every step. And then, right beside him came Tigo. She was glowing in a beautiful gown. Her hair was styled, her face calm and radiant. She looked nothing like the girl who once swept their compound or fetched water. Her aunt nearly choked on her drink. Her uncle blinked again and again in disbelief. Inya took the microphone and said, "A week ago, many of you didn't know her name, but today, I want the whole world to know, this is my wife." Gasps filled the room. People clapped loudly. Some stood up in surprise. The aunt gripped the edge of the table, her face turning pale. The uncle started sweating. They looked at each other in shock, shame flooding their hearts. As Inya and Tego smiled for the cameras, reporters surrounded them, asking for interviews, taking photos. Nobody cared about the aunt and uncle anymore. They were invisible now. The same girl they treated like a nobody was now standing beside one of the most respected men in Africa. And in that moment, the truth hit them hard. They didn't just lose a housemaid. They lost a daughter who could have changed their lives. But it was too late. As the elegant dinner continued, something unexpected happened. The entire event was being broadcast live on a popular regional TV channel. Thousands of people were watching from their homes, phones, and shops. What they saw was not just a fancy event, it was a real-life story that touched hearts. The camera focused on Inya as he held Tego's hand. The hall became quiet. Inya spoke into the microphone, his voice calm and clear. Many people didn't see her, he said, looking at Tego with love in his eyes. She was treated like nothing, like she didn't matter. She was thrown away, but she wasn't lost. She was thrown away so I could find her. People in the hall clapped gently, moved by his words. But it was the people watching at home who really felt it. On social media, comments started flooding in. Who is she? Wow, such grace. She's so beautiful. Some people even cried. They couldn't believe the same girl who was kicked out of her home was now being celebrated on TV. Then Tego was invited to speak. She didn't blame anyone. She didn't shout or insult. Instead, she simply said, "I've always believed that kindness is not weakness. I forgive those who hurt me, but I also thank them. Because of them, I found my true home." That moment was powerful. She didn't need revenge. Her peace and strength said everything. The camera showed her aunt and uncle sitting in the crowd looking small, full of shame. They didn't know it was being shown live. Now, everyone in the village would know the truth. Online, her name trended. People called her a symbol of quiet strength. Young girls shared her photo and wrote, "If Tego can rise, so can I." She became more than a wife or a guest. She became a voice for those who were mistreated and forgotten. In that one night, the world saw her not as a poor housemaid, but as a woman of grace, power, and unshakable dignity. And her story wasn't just viral, it became a lesson people would never forget. After the charity event went viral, and Tego became the woman everyone was talking about, something strange started happening. The same aunt and uncle, who once threw her out like trash, suddenly began calling her phone. Over and over, they left voice notes, crying and saying how much they missed her. But Tego didn't reply. Then, they took it a step further. They showed up at the gates of Inya's mansion. Yes, the same mansion they never dreamed their housemaid would live in. They stood outside, begging the guards to let them in. They brought fake tears, carried gifts, and told anyone who would listen that Tego was their sweet daughter, and they were just worried sick about her. But it was all for show. Inya didn't let them through. Not even once. He didn't raise his voice or say bad words. He simply made sure they were blocked at every door. Tego didn't hide behind him. She stood beside him, silent but powerful. Later that week, when reporters came to ask her how she felt about her family suddenly missing her, Tego spoke with a calm voice that carried deep strength. She said, "If they couldn't love me when I was poor, they don't deserve me now." That one sentence spread like fire. People all over social media clap back at fake relatives who only show love when success arrives. Tego became a voice for the silent ones, those who had been hurt and used by their own families. She didn't scream or curse. She just showed the world that true love doesn't change with money. Her story wasn't just about love or riches. It was about standing tall, knowing your worth, and not going back to people who only remember you when it benefits them. The doors that once slammed in her face were now begging to open, but she had already walked through better ones. Months passed, and Tego's life had completely changed. She was no longer the poor girl ignored and hurt by her own family. Instead, she became a strong woman, determined to help others like her. With Inya's support, she started a foundation for girls in rural villages. Girls who, like her, were often denied education and treated as less because of their poverty. On the day the foundation opened, many people came to celebrate. There were smiles, speeches, and cheers. But what caught everyone's attention was a beautiful mural painted right at the gate. It showed a barefoot girl walking away from a broken house. The sky ahead was bright, shining with gold light, symbolizing hope and a better future. Underneath the painting were 3 simple words that told Tego's story in a powerful way: thrown out, picked up, crowned. These words spoke louder than any speech. They told everyone that no matter where you start or how people treat you, you can rise, be noticed, and become a queen in your own life. Tego looked at the mural and smiled quietly. She knew this was not just about her. It was about all the girls who had ever felt forgotten, worthless, or weak. She wanted them to know they could walk their own path, just like she did. The foundation was her way of giving back, of changing the story for many others. From being shamed and thrown out, Tigo had become a shining example of strength and hope. Her journey was proof that with courage, love, and belief in yourself, you can turn pain into power and change your world forever. If you believe everyone deserves a chance to shine no matter where they come from, share Tigo's story now and inspire someone who needs hope today. Don't forget to like, comment, and follow for more real stories that prove strength comes from within. Your share could change a life.